Scriptorium. Guy. Guy says good day, Andreas. Guy. Old Bailey. Church, scriptorium, church, dormitory. Church. Edoc, cloister. Dormitory, refectory, courtyard, large garden. Large garden. Cloister. Chapter house. Abbot house. Ferenc. Ferenc says, ah, Andreas. What an awful time. Awful time. A Baron, murdered at Kiersaw. These are dark days indeed, Brother Pierrot. I admit, I would have never thought him the type. What could have possessed him? Option 1 of 3. While you can't believe Brother Pierrot would kill the Baron, it's not in his nature. Option 2 of 3. Pierrot is a half step from the grave. You really think he could have killed a man in his prime? Option 3 of 3. The devil can make monsters of even the holiest men, Prior Ferenc. But Pierrot? Ferenc says all men are weak to Satan's temptations, Andreas. Even old men. But you have come to me for a reason. Do you need something? Option 1 of 3. I came across an interesting letter from you addressed to the late Baron Rothvogel. Option 2 of 3. While you rushed into the scriptorium and hid something strange at your desk. Option 3 of 3. Not now, thank you. Option 2 of 3. While you rushed into the scriptorium and hid something strange at your desk. Ferenc says pardon? And why were you sneaking about the scriptorium? Option 1 of 4. What was it? Some kind of disc? Option 2 of 4. Why are you trying to distract me? Option 3 of 4. I can ask questions, too. What was so important you had to be late for Terse? Option 4 of 4. I wasn't sneaking. I'd dropped a bottle of paint on the floor and was cleaning it up. Option 1 of 2. I could have left it there if you'd preferred. The floor is rather drab in the scriptorium. Option 2 of 2. I get more work done while you and the rest of the brothers are at church. Option 1 of 2. I could have left it there if you'd preferred. The floor is rather drab in the scriptorium, Ferenc says this ungrateful wretch. Let us seek a common understanding, Master Mailer, as two brothers in Christ. Option 1 of 2 please, let's. I love to understand things. Option 2 of 2 say nothing. Option 1 of 2 please, let's. I love to understand things, Ferenc says growling. The scriptorium is my domain, and you are a guest here. And so long as that is true, I do not answer to you, but the abbot only. Is that clear? Option 1 of 2 I suppose. Option 2 of 2 if you don't mind me asking, why aren't you the abbot? Option 1 of 2 it's an elected position, isn't it? Did your brothers not find you fit? Option 2 of 2 are you not better suited to the job, given your age and experience? Ferenc says that's not. I will not discuss this with you. Are we done here? Option 1 of 2 I had a few more questions, if you don't mind. Option 2 of 2 FOR now. Be well, Prior Ferenc. Option 1 of 2 I had a few more questions, if you don't mind. Ferenc says be quick about it. Option 1 of 2 I came across an interesting letter from you addressed to the late Baron Rothvogel. Ferenc says what? Where did you get that? Option 1 of 3 Lawrence S. Manservant, my claws. Option 2 of 3 FROM an impression I made of your writing pad. Option 3 of 3 WERE you performing occult rituals with the Baron? Option 1 of 3 Lawrence S. Manservant, my claws. Player says he thought I might shed light on who killed the Baron. Ferenc says it's not as it looks. He meant to coerce me into performing a ritual to help him with a condition. But I refused, as the letter makes abundantly clear. Option 1 of 3 Baron's threat remained, and you know how fickle inquisitors can be about what books people choose to read. Option 2 of 3 line between one who knows such rituals and one who practices them is thin as a spider's thread, Prior. Option 3 of 3 WHAT led him to believe he could come to your with this request? Option 2 of 3 The line between one who knows such rituals and one who practices them is thin as a spider's thread. Player says some would say it is only a matter of time before the temptation became too much. Ferenc says do not question my devotion to the Lord, Master Mailer. I am the prior of the Kiersaw Scriptorium, one of the few of its kind left in Christendom. Modest though the abbey may be, our library contains works on subjects rarely found beyond its walls, certainly not all in the same place. For men of certain academic interests, it is perhaps the only place we may meet and discuss them. Option 1 of 3 I've always thought it's a perfectly reasonable area of study, so long as you avoid certain subjects. Option 2 of 3 Are you a witch, Prior Ferenc? Option 3 of 3 Yet he threatened to expose you to church inquisitors. Option 1 of 3 I've always thought it's a perfectly reasonable area of study, so long as you avoid certain subjects. Player says it's a rich area for scholarly insight. Ferenc says the Baron's interest was more than academic. When he wished to make it practical, I refused. There is nothing more to it. Option 1 of 2 The Inquisition is not kind to practitioners of witchcraft. Lawrence could have gotten you killed. Option 2 of 2 I see. Option 1 of 2 The Inquisition is not kind to practitioners of witchcraft. Lawrence could have gotten you killed. Ferenc says I did not kill Baron Rothvogel, and I do not care if you believe me. It is simply a fact, which the Archdeacon will surely realize. Now, is that all? I have duties I really should attend to. Player says I will leave you in peace. Be well, Prior Ferenc. Ferenc says, be well, Master Mailer. Gernot. Gernot says Andreas. I trust you are abiding by my command to leave Pierrot and the rest of the monastics in peace? Option 1 of 3 Lie I've been abiding by your command, frustrating through it is. Player says Father Gernot is in a difficult position. He hasn't been at the abbot long, and he's young. The elder monks don't respect him. A friend of the Prince Bishop murdered under the roof of his abbey, it doesn't look good. Option 1 of 2 If I represent a threat to the abbot's authority, he could expel me from the abbey, masterwork, or not. Option 2 of 2 I could lie and say I haven't investigated a single thing. Player says but if the abbot discovers my treachery, it will damage my reputation with him. I don't think the abbot would expel me, but the abbot could make my life very difficult for the rest of my time at Kiersaw. Option 1 of 3 Lie I've been abiding by your command, frustrating through it is. Option 2 of 3 No, I've been pursuing other leads, as you should be. Option 3 of 3 Maybe. Have you made any progress in finding the Baron's true murderer? Option 2 of 3 No, I've been pursuing other leads, as you should be. Gernot says clearly, you do not understand the grave nature of this situation. Moreover, I do not appreciate your implication that I have done nothing as we await the arrival of the Archdeacon. Just because you do not see people act does not mean their actions cease to exist, Andreas. There is more at stake here than you understand, Andreas. Option 1 of 3 Given that I am not the Lord and don't have perfect understanding of all things, of course that's the case. Option 2 of 3 That may be, but I can't in good conscience let an innocent man face death while a murderer runs loose. Option 3 of 3 What is at stake here. Option 2 of 3 That may be, but I can't in good conscience let an innocent man face death while a murderer runs loose. Player says which is why I've come to you with a request. Gernot says him. And? Option 1 of 2 I have reason to believe there is something hidden in Brother Gerhard's grave, and I'd like to dig it up. Player says Ferenc is Gernot's assistant. Option 1 of 2 suggesting Ferenc might have killed Lawrence might anger the abbot if the two are close. Option 2 of 2 The brothers chose Gernot over Ferenc because they didn't find Ferenc trustworthy. Gernot might not, either. Option 2 of 2 The brothers chose Gernot over Ferenc because they didn't find Ferenc trustworthy. Gernot might not, either. Player says I could keep Ferenc's name out of it entirely, but then my reasoning would sound rather vague. Option 1 of 2 I have reason to believe there is something hidden in Brother Gerhard's grave, and I'd like to dig it up. Option 2 of 2 I have reason to believe Prior Frank has hidden something in Brother Gerhard's grave, and I'd like to dig it up. Option 1 of 2 I have reason to believe there is something hidden in Brother Gerhard's grave, and I'd like to dig it up. Gernot says, what does that have to do with the death of Baron Rothvogel? Option 1 of 2 I suspect the weapon used to murder the Baron may be buried there. Option 2 of 2 I am not certain of the connection yet, but I have a hunch. Gernot says, do you take me for a fool? I will not let you exhume Brother Gerhard's body on a hunch. Player says, what does it matter? He's nothing more than bones now. I'm sure he won't mind. Gernot says he was a brother of this abbey, and he should be left in peace. Just as I would like to be. Leave now, and do not pester me about this again. Gernot. Pet Mirab Frank. Large garden. Player says Brother Gerhard's grave was disturbed recently. Frank must have buried something here. I need to dig up this grave if I want to know what he was up to. Option 1 of 2 I bet Otto would help me if I asked. Option 2 of 2 perhaps Brother Folkbert would lend me a hand. Option 1 of 2 I bet Otto would help me if I asked. Option 2 of 2 perhaps Brother Folkbert would lend me a hand. Option 1 of 2 I bet Otto would help me if I asked. Animal pens. Church. Lordy. Mill. Forest Hill. Mill. Church and Rivers. Mill. House. Johann Bauer Farm. Town Commons. Johann. Johann says Andreas. Was just wondering when you'd turn up. The gaggle said you'd come to watch them spin. Between you and me, Hetty's not about to let you go once she's got you in her claws. So I hope you've got a few hours to hunker down and get comfortable. Option 1 of 2 I am happy to spare a few hours. Johann says Hetty'll be glad to hear it. She's got a fondness for you, heaven knows why. Now, I can't let you inside among the unmarried girls, being unmarried yourself, but you're welcome to watch through one of the windows. Option 1 of 2 Yo, you don't need to worry about me. Option 2 of 2 I understand. Option 1 of 2 Yo, you don't need to worry about me. Johann says good. Nothing matters more for a young woman than her reputation, and Eva and Veronica won't be getting a poor one on my watch. Hetty says, that idiot never did see trouble, he didn't want to jump in feet first. Veronica says, you don't think he's gone to Innsbruck? Option 1 of 2 WHO are we talking about? Option 2 of 2 keep listening. Option 1 of 2 WHO are we talking about? Option 1 of 2 WHO are we talking about? Veronica says we were discussing my cousin, Martin. Even though my mom says we're not supposed to. Hetty says it's different when I do it. Johann says, Veronica, don't argue with your mother. Veronica says that's not fair. Johann says, and no back talk. Option 1 of 3 laugh quietly. Option 2 of 3 frown. Option 3 of 3 keep listening. Veronica says sorry, Dad. Hetty says anyway, I doubt Martin's gone to Innsbruck. That's small time to the little shit now. Clara says you think he has something more exciting in mind? Kot says it's a big world. Perhaps he intends to explore it. Or escape. Clara says that nobleman was just murdered up at the abbey. Eva says Martin picked an awfully convenient time to run off. Kot says, oh, Lord. Clara says Andreas was friends with the nobleman. Do you think Martin could have, you know? Option 1 of 3 WHAT motivation could Martin have possibly had? Option 2 of 3 I am not ruling anyone out just yet. Option 3 of 3 I don't think this is appropriate for me to discuss. Option 1 of 3 WHAT motivation could Martin have possibly had? Clara says it's not our place to say. Hetty says Martin has a nasty little habit. Kot says he's gotten better. Johann says once a thief, always a thief, I say. Option 1 of 2 I saw Martin running away from the abbey the morning Lawrence was killed. Option 2 of 2 I don't think this is appropriate for me to discuss. Johann says this is a matter best left to the proper authorities. Certainly not a spinning bee. Imagine being tried by a gaggle of peasant women. Eva says that's unkind, Johann. Johann says it's the truth, isn't it? Doesn't matter if it hurts your feelings. Option 1 of 2 she's right, Johann. You're being unfair. Option 2 of 2 say nothing. Option 1 of 2 she's right, Johann. You're being unfair. Johann says remind me, Andreas, whose home are we in? Hetty says oh, lay off him, Johann. Jesus. Andreas, if you're just going to stand around, how about I put you to work? Johann says if you're going to gossip with the girls, you might as well spin with them, too. Player says how does this work? Hetty says draft wool from the distaff and twist it tight, then spin the tight yarn onto the spindle. Once there's enough yarn on the spindle, collect it at the bottom and begin again. Draft, twist, spin, collect, repeat. You'll figure it out. Player says damn thing. Oh, hell. Shit. I've got it. Clara says do you know, I took Ursula to play with Gret's daughter the other day. And there was a strange man in the bakery. Johann says was he polite to you? I can't believe Ulrich would stand for anything less. Eva says he was very reserved. Dark skin, quite tall, and wearing a tunic. Clara says he liked the rye bread, I remember. Hetty says who is this man? Why am I just now hearing about this? Kot says I believe he is staying at the abbey. Veronica says that must be Brother Sebat. Brigitte and I saw him walking up there after visiting the shops. He seemed lost. Hetty says where is he from? Does he speak German? Christ, I hate being the last to know. Hetty says you know, I saw Big Jurg talking to that nun again. The young one. Johann says het. Who can blame him? Hetty says god damn it, Johann. Johann says het. Clara says he knows she's trouble. I told him to stay away. Veronica says she's very pretty, isn't she? In a mean way? Clara says pretty, perhaps, but a nun all the same. He knows better. Eva says when has that ever stopped Big Jurg from doing anything? Hetty says we have plenty of pretty girls here in town. My Veronica's not half bad. Veronica says Mom. Johann says let's not give Andreas any ideas, eh? Player says damned thing. Clara says Brigida has been spending a lot of time at her mother's house lately. Agnes is glad to have her home, and Lucky's always treated her like a daughter, but I can tell they're concerned. Are Brigida and Martin having trouble, Veronica? Veronica says that's one word for it. Brigida does what she can, but nothing pleases Martin. He won't lift a finger for her or Wolf. He's such an asshole. Johann says well, that's not his business, is it? Women's work, and all that. Veronica says you ever seen him doing much men's work, Dad? Johann says can't say I've ever seen him do much work at all. Clara says perhaps Lucky can talk some sense into Martin. He's always been a devoted husband and father. Kot says Lucky Steinauer is the model of what a man should be. Otto says is everyone behaving themselves in here? Veronica says oh, it's you. Hetty says afternoon, Otto. Come to see anyone special? Eva says hello, Otto. Otto says I heard laughing from the road and knew you all had to be up to no good in here. And look, there's Andreas. Have you been minding your manners? Old Johann here's a real stickler for propriety. Option 1 of 2 I fear I've been yoked to the wheel of propriety my entire life. Option 2 of 2 I've mostly been listening, actually. Option 1 of 2 I fear I've been yoked to the wheel of propriety my entire life. Otto says right, what was I thinking? You're probably going to take everything you hear to the abbot. Johann says as if the abbot cares what the common people think. Humph. Option 1 of 3 I could be here to flirt with the young women, you don't know. Option 2 of 3 The abbot's preoccupied with the world to come, not this one. Option 3 of 3 The abbot's really not so bad. Otto says easy for you to say, considering you're not subject to his whims. Listen, you're a fine enough man, Andreas, but you're hardly unbiased. Johann says too much time listening to hymns, not enough time working. That's your problem. No wonder you're not married, Andreas. Otto says we all know you work hard in the fields, Johann, no need to boast. Hetty says he works hard in other places, too. Veronica says Mom. Hetty says you've been in town a few months, Andreas. Got any burning questions you've been meaning to ask? Option 1 of 2 About Kearsarge Abbey. Option 2 of 2 About Tassing. Option 2 of 3 Option 1 of 3 Do you see much of the monks and nuns in town? Option 2 of 3 Anchores in the church. Do you know much about her? Option 3 of 3 How have you been weathering the storm? Option 2 of 3 Anchores in the church. Do you know much about her? Veronica says oh, Sister Emily. Eva says you know her, Veronica? Veronica says we're not dear friends or anything, but sometimes she has these fits, you know? And if Father Thomas isn't there and I have time, I'll wait with her until he arrives. Hetty says since when? I didn't know anything about this. Eva says and here I thought you just adored the church building. You're so funny, Veronica. Veronica says don't make it sound weird. She's nice, and someone should be there when she's in pain. That's all. Option 1 of 2 Father Thomas told me she receives visions from God. Option 2 of 2 The life of an Anchores is difficult and can be quite lonely. I'm sure she appreciates the company. Clara says Father Thomas has reprimanded me for speaking to her. I'm surprised he hasn't done the same to you, Veronica. Veronica says oh, I just make sure he doesn't know. Hetty says blood sacrament. What have I told you about disrespecting the father? Johann says will you stop your cursing, woman? Hetty says no. Player says she's been in Tassing for near on a decade, hasn't she? Clara says since I was a girl, certainly. We've grown up with her, Eva says the woman in the maze. It's like something from a tale of knights and monsters. Veronica says she's trapped in a box. I don't think there's anything romantic about that. Hetty says aren't you a little know-it-all? I didn't realize you were an expert. Come on, Andreas. Surely you've got better questions than that. Option 1 of 2 About Kier saw Abbey. Player says Clara mentioned the abbot has suddenly started raising taxes. Clara says raising them and changing their terms, yes. When Father Matthias was the abbot, he would let us pay a portion of our taxes in crops. Otto says naturally, the shit for brains abbot put an end to that this year. Eva says even if our crops fail or produce less than we'd like, we still owe the abbey for the use of the land. It doesn't make any sense. How can he raise our taxes when the price for our grain does not rise, too? Where does he think the money comes from? Otto says he doesn't think about the common folk at all. If it's not his abbey, it's not his problem. Option 1 of 3 You could renegotiate a better price on your grain with the miller. Option 2 of 3 What about the miller? Doesn't he have some part to play in that? Option 3 of 3 But it isn't his problem. He's the abbot, not the mayor. Option 1 of 3 You could renegotiate a better price on your grain with the miller. Johann says what's his incentive? He's got the farmers over a barrel, and he knows it. Ulrich Alban won't overcharge him the way Lenhart does us, so he charges us through the nose and pockets the difference. Kot says Lenhart is not a kind man. And he does not negotiate. Clara says he might if you carry a lot of debt. But his bargains are cruel. Eva says we pay him even before the abbot, though I'm not sure why. Kot says good. Hetty says I have nothing Christian to say about Lenhart Muller, so I will say nothing at all, except that I hope he falls into a fast-moving river during a flood and dashes his brains on the rocks. Johann says Jesus Christ, Hetty. Veronica says can we talk about something else? Hetty says I don't know about you girls, but I'm sick of this wool. I'm sure we've all got other chores to get to. Clara says I'm glad to have that over with. Now I don't have to think about wool for a whole year. Kot says oh. I was having such a nice time. Eva says I certainly learned a lot. Otto says care for an escort home, Eva? Eva says I'd like that, yes. Hetty says heh. Johann says I expect everyone will be on their best behavior going home. Clara says they always are. Eva says Johann, please. Clara says Andreas, will I see you home for supper? Option 1 of 3 yes, I'll be there. Option 2 of 3 I have something to take care of before, but I'll try to make it. Option 3 of 3 perhaps, I'm not sure what my plans are this evening. Option 1 of 2 THIS was very illuminating. Thank you all for letting me join you. Option 2 of 2 THANKU for the invitation, everyone. Option 1 of 2 THIS was very illuminating. Thank you all for letting me join you. Hetty says thanks for coming by, Andreas. Come back anytime. Johann says unless you come on Abbey business. Otto says don't threaten him with a good time, Johann. Johann. Player says I should find someone to eat with. Hetty. Hetty says hey, Andreas. Do you have dinner plans? You should join us for a meal. Option 1 of 2 ID like that. Lead the way, Hetty. Option Hetty says if you say so. Johann Bauer House. Johann Town Common Gertner Farm. Gertner Farm, Town Commons. Zimmerman House, Old Otto. Church and Druckers. Central Town, Drucker House. Thomas. Thomas says God be with you, Andreas. Meadow. Mill, till, forest. Lower Abbey. Upper Abbey. Church. Cloister. In chapter, monastery, large garden, courtyard and Sabbat.